have been laying out a program for this state, and I think I've been very clear about it in my calls to say that we've got to support education, we've got to do a better job program, we've got to reform state government.
Okay, those are some areas that we want to talk about.
I am going to go for those, and I have been very clear, and I believe the people of this state will have a very good decision to make when they decide who can best do those things. That's what they really want.
Okay, but have you heard what's just happened here? 5 minutes ago, Mel Carnahan was bragging about his tenure of success in the lieutenant governor's office, and now he says, well, I didn't do much, but the governor wouldn't let me. Well, that didn't stop Harriet Woods. That didn't stop Kenny Rothman.
I think it's interesting. If you want to support Harriet Woods, I'll mark that down as something new.
You mark down, I'll guarantee you, every one of your predecessors, going back to Bill Phelps, made more of the office than you have, and to say we haven't been successful in our legislative agenda is just flat false. You want to go down the list, Mel, you want to look at the timeshare statute, you want to look at ambulance safety provisions, you want to look at witness protection, a crime victims Bill of Rights. We've set forth initiatives.
Yes,
we have
drafted
them.
It's too bad you've sullied that record by the way you've run the rest of your administration.
All right, well, we'll talk about that, too.
Yes, we will.
But when you stand here and brag about what you've done in the lieutenant governor's office, I'm telling you, it's a joke. And then to blame John Ashcroft and say, he wouldn't let me,
yes,
is the weakest sister argument I've ever heard.
You filed a lawsuit to limit the limit, and I had to go out and hire outside counsel. You were supposed to represent me.
Let's get into the issue that has been a major issue in your campaign, the alleged abuse of his office. I'd like you to tell me what you think he has done that is either improper, illegal, or just poor.
Well, there are a number of things, but certainly the second entry fund is the one that typifies the abuse. The Attorney General is charged with the responsibility of defending, mind you, defending the second entry fund, a fund for injured workers. And he designates the Special Assistant Attorney Generals, appoints them. They can't serve unless he appoints them, that defend the fund. He set up a system whereby they could not only defend the fund, they could also sue the fund. They were approving each other's settlements, and so they elevated and escalated. And then they gave large sums of money. The insiders who were in on this gave large sums of money, nearly $500,000, to Bill's campaign fund. So in effect, he was indirectly benefiting his campaign fund from this state fund of money. Now that's an abuse, giving preferential treatment in an administrative hearing or quasi-judicial hearing because of political connection and political contribution. Now it's not only that, he is also gave a favorable opinion to Bill Pagano, who at that time was his largest political contributor. He gave a sweetheart deal to the Angel Group of nursing homes that had overcharged the state $9 million. And he gave them a sweetheart deal, and the pattern to all this is that they were contributors and they got special treatment. Now, it's not only me that believes this. Didn't originate with me and my campaign.
I hope you're not going to read this.
Erich Vieth, no, I will not, but Erich Vieth, a former Assistant Attorney General, gave an affidavit in which he described the practice that happened of getting rid of a loan sharking investigation because the subject and the owner of the companies was a friend and a contributor to Bill Webster. And Bill said in the press that this was untruthful. We had him take a polygraph, and here's the polygraph lie detector test that shows that in discussing these questions, Erich Vieth was telling the truth. There was also another Special Assistant Attorney General, Tom Glassberg. And he, on hearing the interchange that happened recently about Erich Vieth, he came forward and wrote this letter to the Post-Dispatch. And I'll quote just 2 sentences. He said, improper favors for Bill Webster's contributors and friends were business as usual in that office. A blocked subpoena here, a sweetheart deal there, investigation shut down, a meeting between Webster and a contributor discussing an ongoing investigation. Take it from one who knows firsthand this is how things worked in Attorney General Webster's office. And he concludes this way. I resigned because Mr. Webster's corrupt ways shocked and disgusted me. Now, this was a person who graduated first in his class from Washington University.
Well,
Bill Webster used to brag about being one of his assistants, and this is what he just recently said about the way it worked from the inside.
I'd like Mr. Webster to answer, first of all, I guess as many of the points as you've brought up, but are you handing out favors in exchange for political contributions?
Well, first of all, of course not. You know, every day Every day I'm shocked by the new low that Mel Carnahan's campaign takes, but I think we've reached the pit today, but I'll probably be surprised again tomorrow. He's just cited a couple of former employees in this office. We've had about 200. We have people who are former judges, who are very honorable people. These are two people, two disgruntled employees that left. The Missouri Bar looked at these allegations and frankly laughed at them because it was so ludicrous. And so they've dredged it up now 2 weeks in front of a campaign. If these people were serious, they wouldn't have done this 2 weeks in front of a campaign. This is pathetic. Now, there's only one person sitting at this table, unless you two gentlemen know something I don't. There's only one person sitting at this table that's financially benefited from the Second Injury Fund. It's that gentleman right over there and his law firm. It's not Bill Webster. Now, if you walk right down this line, my entire career has been fighting crime and corruption. And we have a pretty good record in the Office of Attorney General. And what Mel Carnahan is saying, what he's saying in his commercials, what he's saying in this garbage tonight, is absolutely unfair. It is a blatant lie. And I challenge Mel Carnahan to come up with any proof, with any evidence, because that certainly isn't it. Now, these false statements are an outrage. My wife is here in the studio. It's wrong. It's wrong for my family. It's wrong for the honorable people in the Office of Attorney General, and there have been literally hundreds. I have proposed a 14-point plan to resolve some of the problems in the Second Injury Fund. And isn't it curious when we say, Mel, which one of these do you support? They're the same ones that are supported by the National Federation of Independent Business, by Associated Industries, by the State Chamber, which endorses me, not Mel Carnahan, because they know we really will do something to change it. Mel is silent. He doesn't say he's for capping. He doesn't say he's for changing what are compensable claims. And if you look at the percentage of contributions that Mel Carnahan has received in the last 6 months from claimants' attorneys, and you set it by Bill Webster's, you'll find that this is the person who is receiving the financial benefit from the trial lawyers of the state of Missouri, not Bill Webster. There is not one shred of information that suggests that we have done anything wrong except headlines around this state, and I resent it. No one has ever received a sweetheart deal from Bill Webster. Those are the facts. There's only one candidate, just one, that has proposed specific reforms. That's me. There's only one candidate that has sued an abuser of the system, and that's me. There's only one candidate that hasn't profited. And Mel says, well, it wasn't me, it was my firm, but it's part of his firm. Here's the checks. I brought them. It says Carnahan and Carnahan on the back. It's signed. It's deposited. And even though you promised to be a full-time lieutenant governor, you went home, you made over $1 million in the practice of law during the time you say, well, look at all the things I've been doing in Jefferson City, and then you have the audacity to criticize us. Now, Mel is a lawyer.
Now, he's just got to talk
better.
about painting the brush. He's just gone about as far as you can go. First of all, he's trying to run against my son.
It says Carnahan and Carnahan.
Look on the check,
look on the front.
Mel. It was made to my son.
Are you a partner of the firm? Did you take your name off the door?
No,
do you participate in the profits of the firm? Well, then answer, for God's sake.
I do not.
You don't get any money from this firm?
These were the two cases that my son handled. They were two permanently disabled employees, people who never worked again. That's the legitimate use of the fund. And he got fees of less than $5,000. Less than $5,000. And that is what this fund ought to be for, and it's not the kind of abuse that you've given to it to permit Morris Kessler to get $40,000 maximum award for his elbow in a file cabinet. And I understand he's still working. I don't believe he's totally disabled.
Well, now, wait a minute, Mel. If you go and look at the records, you'll find that that was we allege that was a forged signature, and we're suing him. So don't say Bill Webster approved that, because you know that's a lie. Get your facts straight.
Apparently you did permit the system to happen where he could get it, and
now you know better than that.
Well, why the necessity to reform the Second Injury Fund? Why the need for you to take the action to reform
Yes, and those reforms, you ought to listen to those reforms. You know, they have to have a medical statement now to back up a claim, and they've got to sign their own name, original name, to their settlements. They can't sign for each other. And you know, if it's over $10,000, they've now got to have someone else review it. Now, if he's got a system that's running and where you need that for reform, I don't think you need Bill Webster to do it, because he's let the thing run amok. He's abused it. He's abused his office.
Well,
and I believe that is a
lie.
Mel
Carnahan,
when he set up a scam, when you set up a scam system to where those that are on the inside get special deals, which now you want to say that that's coincidence, and I'm sure that's what you're saying. No connection.
I didn't say that's a coincidence. I said that's a lie. There is a difference between a coincidence and a lie. We didn't set up any system, and you should know it.
Well,
I mean, you've been home practicing. You've been home practicing law for a year. You made $1 million. You're
now he's
a lawyer.
raised it again. He did. He charges other places. It was $500,000. Now it's gone up to $1 million tonight.
How much was it? I'm sorry, $880,000.
I was paid a fee in my first year for a case that I finished.
How much have you made? How much have you made from your law firm in the last 4 years while you promised you were going to be full-time? How much have you made, Mel?
Very nominal amounts because I own the building.
You looked the voters in the eye in 1988.
I certainly did, and I've been a full-time lieutenant governor. Yes, I have been.
But you just told us you haven't done anything for the last 4 years.
Rich has got a
question.
Could we move on just a little bit? I think both of you in the Kansas City Star debate 2 weeks ago told us that you were disgusted with the negative tone of the campaign. And based on what we've just heard here this evening, based on the campaign commercials that both of you have been running, I just wonder if you think it's been elevated any. Basically, Bill, you've been running a commercial that accuses Mel Carnahan of being the modern-day incarnation of Joe McCarthy. Mel, you've been running the campaign commercial that basically says 3 of the things that you've alleged tonight. You've talked about the Pagano case. You've talked about the second injury fund. You've talked about the nursing home scam, as you call it. Are both of you proud of the tone and level of the campaign? And has it in any way elevated since you both deplored it?
No, I think that it's deteriorated, and I do not like that. But I also don't like my face on the screen and mutilating it and trying to make me into McCarthy. And that's the most ridiculous thing that there ever was, because I have used things that are in the public domain. Some of the things that the major newspapers of this state have brought out, I've also brought out assistant attorney generals who think the same thing. And Bill Webster would have you say there's no connection between the fact that he got $500,000. That's a pretty good sum of money, in my opinion, for campaign contributions from a little select group who got special favors. And he says, oh, there's no scam, there's no scheme, that's just coincidence. Or that he got the favorable opinion to Pagano because he gave $45,000.
Are we going to have an opportunity to respond to this?
Same point.
No.
Let's go on.
No, Rich asked a question. You know, that is just obscene. That is exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about Mel McCarthy over here. He talks about an opinion that was issued. He knows. Go look at the file. The opinion was requested by a prosecuting attorney in a county 100 miles away and the county counselor of Clay County, Missouri, which is the county north of Kansas City. No one except my primary opponent, who is now doing your research, not my primary, my general election opponent in 1988, Mr. Wolf, who made this bald-faced assertion without any support whatsoever in '88, that was for somebody else. It was for a prosecuting attorney in Washington County, Missouri, and you know it, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know, I had somebody.
Okay,
not. Now that's the gospel truth. If you can produce one shred of evidence that that opinion was not requested by the Clay County county counselor and the Washington County prosecutor, then let's do it tonight. I won't leave until you can come forward with me, because you don't have anything. You don't have anything.
That prosecuting attorneys have to ask for these, but it benefited your friend and your large contributor, and I would just have to say that if there was not anything, well, now, I don't know why you felt it necessary to give his contribution back, and you certainly must have felt necessary to do that this year. And
no, it had nothing to do with that whatsoever. I guess you can argue that it also benefited Royal Stadium and Bush Stadium because they use off-duty policemen. That is obscene. It is ludicrous. It is the worst kind of innuendo, and it's exactly what we're talking about. He talks about a nursing home case in southwest Missouri. That was absolutely false. That was a settlement that was recommended by an entirely different agency of state government, and it produced millions of dollars. So once again, Mel is making the allegation. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But your question, as I recall, was what do you think of the tone of the campaign? And I will tell you, from day one, Mel Carnahan has run a one-note campaign of lies, of innuendo, and of false accusation. And I put up with this nonsense for about 8 weeks. And then finally I said, you know, you've got to tell it like it is. You've got to have straight talk. And this guy says, oh, I want to be the reincarnation of Harry Truman. I want to have straight talk. Well, let's have straight talk. And let's call it what it is. Mel doesn't want to tell you that he's for a $300 million tax increase because he knows they'd run him out on a rail in the state of Missouri. He talks about straight talk. Well, put it on the air. Tell him what you want. Say, I want to raise taxes. I want to unionize schools. Tell him why the National Rifle collective bargaining for public employees. It sure is.
Okay,
It sure is.
I've supported that.
I
but
think there are
that's very
things here
different.
that you do disagree on other than
I would
the
just
things
like to
we've been
point
talking
out,
about.
Rich, in answer to your question, that
Well, you've had a chance to answer that question already about the campaign, so I would like to move on to one of the issues that you've brought up, and you've both brought up, and that's one of the questions of education. You're both in favor of improving Missouri's educational system, grade school, high school, higher education.